I'm Steve Wood, recovered alcoholic. Welcome. We have a nice group in here tonight. Happy to see a lot of familiar faces. Um, I was thinking, how important step nine is to me, and as an individual. Where would I be without step nine? It 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 taught me how to communicate with people at a different level. Because like when I asked my sponsor to sponsor me, this is how I did it. Can you sponsor me? I looked down at the ground and he grabbed me by the chin, lifted my head up, and he said, yes. That's how shy I was. I didn't like to be around near people. And yes, I go to AA and this and that, but it went to going to someone and I looked at everything as a confrontation. And that's why I was scared of nine for a long time because I thought it was about having a confrontation with somebody, or it might be a confrontation. But once I got to that area, I realized how it wasn't anymore. I wanted to heal this stuff. I wanted to feel I started to feel what other people felt. And I started to understand the promises in this book, and that's what we're gonna look at tonight. Um, there's a lot of spiritual groups, whether it's in the Christian churches or even the Buddhist monasteries and stuff, and that do some type of something similar to step nine, and where they want you to go to people and clear up your side of the street, so to speak. But usually what they want you to do is they want you to reflect on your past for a little bit. And here's the advantage we have over those other groups. Nothing wrong with them or anything like that. But we've gone way deep on our reflection in step four. Because if they just ask us to go home and reflect for an hour, you're not gonna reflect as deep as you did on four. And we go even deeper when we do five, right? And just, we're taking our responsibility for our past action, looking at our side of the street. And this is where growth starts. It's where growth starts. And because the 9 step promises we'll look at later on are not just 9 step promises, but they connect all the action steps together, what we've gone to this point. And we start to realizing, you know, people say they're results. What they really are is a miracle of healing. And this is the third week we've done on amends because I think it's beneficial, be for all the information and directions we have in here. We go to do these 8 pages. I think it's 8 pages, 7 or 8 pages, really slow. It's very important to go through them, thorough, because there's a lot of misinformation. I'm not saying that what I say is right or wrong or my way or the highway or anything like that, but there's a lot of information without some of the words I've heard over the past. I wouldn't be here, you know, and think about let's go back to when we did the 3rd step prayer, not in this group. I'm talking you as an individual. Go back and take yourself back into the 3rd step prayer and you dropped to your knees and did that prayer, whether it was in the back of a pizza restaurant or if it was in the back of your sponsor's house or out in another room in a meeting or who knows. And then all of a sudden you feel like you're almost like it gives you the hope and you start writing step four. And that's when the eye opener starts happening. How many times, you know, for instance, we recognize how our personal relations were affected in step four, and a lot of them. And the reality is we live in a world with those, we have to live in a world with those people. So we can choose to live with them in confusion. And it's not just those people, it's every people in general. So we can choose to live in a world where we have confusion and chaos, or we can surrender to peace and serenity. And we can start living in that. I look at is when I do 6 and 7, part of my surrender is to live a life of peace and serenity, but I have to go further. And many like to say, in the world of confusion and chaos, you know, that at least they know what's going on. I heard someone say that. At least in the world of chaos, I know what's going on. That's insane. And why would I want to stay in a world of chaos, and keep living, limited and blocked off? The reason they live that way, they're saying when a person says that, they refuse to make amends. I had a guy tell me the other night, why should I inventory fear? I like my fears. I was like, okay, well, there's nothing else I could say. And, you know, with people that want to make amends, their world is very small. And it's been small for a long time, like almost like living in a box. And recovery is not about living in a box. It's not about hiding out. It's not about crawling. It's not dodging people, in places we wrong. It's so many skip step 9 because they overanalyze it. And then with the what ifs and all that, we talk a lot about that. We think we overthink about it. We'll play the entire scenario in our head before it's happened. We're really good with that. You know, and I mean, I used to wake up in the morning back in the day, and if I had any chaos going on in my life, I would pray that scenario 16 times in my head. Then once I got sober, it turned to like 6, and then it turned to 2. But I did that with the men's a lot. You know, the truth is, amends aren't scary. It's more scary not making them and thinking about them, right? But what causes us not to make amends? Fear. And I always say fear is, people say it's false, evidence appearing real. I call it false expectations. False expectations. False expectations will be, I'm going to go to this guy's house and he's not going to accept my amends. And but the thing about it is we blame not doing amends because we can't go to that person. The truth is, what stands between making amends is not the other person. It's only one person. It's us. And I want you to think about this tonight. Some of you have been doing this is there that one person? Is there that one person? And why? I'll mention the sponsees a lot. Some got 4 years, 5 years. Well, how come you haven't made that amends yet? You know, you know, I said this before. Fear is all over this 4-step process. So fearless moral inventory, fear is bracketed next to the instincts, right? We see, next to Mr. Brown and all that. They motivate our instincts. One of the instincts is pride, which is fear what others think of me. And then also one of our mistakes is frightened in column 4. And frightened is a state of living in fear. I don't want to live in fear anymore. And of course, we inventory fears. So how do we overcome fear? Becoming aware of them, what drives them helps a lot, when we inventory them. But when we have that awareness, they start to lose their depth and weight. Step 5, with the help of another person, we get more awareness towards fear. And 6, we let God remove our fear. Does that mean we don't have fear anymore? It means we've outgrown the old ones. We are more aware of our fears. We're leaning towards managing them. But we need to become fearless, and that does not mean no fear. It means you're starting to have courage. Step 9 is very therapeutic with fear because we're afraid to face people, some of these people, or just this type of situation. And there's social fear of going to these people. The only way we get past any fear is walking straight through the fear, right? Remember I said before with fear is almost always telling me to do something. And, that's one of the reasons why we make amends is to overcome fear of this social fear. And that's one reason why we float away when we make amends, why you feel is that floating away feeling. And you feel so good about how you felt. You're like, whoa, what happened there? Because it went a different way. I heard a person, I forget exactly what they said the other day. It was beautiful about God. And there's some things that we look at God and we say, I'm going to follow God's way. And then sometimes we don't want to follow God's way, and God pushes us that direction. Right. And someone very close to me lost their job the other day and told me that I wanted to leave that job for 4 years. He goes, God had an interesting way of pushing me out of it. And sometimes God's an interesting way of pushing us towards people. So you want to have always the willingness to make amends, because you'll be surprised. One of the most, we go to a place in our local community where we most likely drink. Is there a chance that some people on our men's list might show up at AA meetings? That's an interesting aspect where I'm read 6 years, and all of a sudden a guy who I thought was dead showed up in a meeting. It wasn't a ghost. And I knew right away, wherever possible. So, because, an ideal we must obtain, if I'm going to walk this spiritual realm, it's having the correct mindset of daily living. And one of the crucial elements to achieve that ideal is making amends to those we've harmed emotionally, physically, financially, spiritually. This is a spiritual journey. It's not about running away. And there's a part of the spiritual life that consists of of mending fences, so to speak. There's no part of spiritual life about cutting ties with people or having enemies. Doesn't mean you need to be friends with these people and hang out with them, but every day we're given the opportunity to make right with somebody wherever possible. Not only does it, get past the wrong we done, it defines our character, it changes us. And we'll see that tonight with these promises. All of our mistakes no longer have to define us. Amends can define you. If you have fear with amends, pray to have, the willingness to make it, like they said here. We pray for willingness until it comes. We get that willingness in step 6. We ask for willingness to let go of these defects. That's the start of willingness prayer. And I want the strength to make right with others. And one day, you look back, and some of you do it right, are there. You'll look back and know the path you walk on is built on amends. It fixes the past in a way we can never engineer on our own. It gives us the freedom within and freedom in the outside world. So there's a lot of stuff we hold within still. By setting things right with the universe and eliminate something that can offset or destroy us in seconds. Our amends are more than simply, dumping old baggage. It gives us just a brand new understanding. I like to say it's the final piece to the puzzle for a lot of us. So let's go to page 83. And one of my favorite lines in the book, because I hear this, you probably get me where I'm going with this as I read it. Page 83. Yes, there is still a long period of reconstruction ahead. We must take the lead. A remorseful mumbling that we're sorry won't fit the bill at all. Many people in recovery, when they define amends, will say it's an apology. Matter of fact, if you Google amends quotes, and a lot of articles on the internet and stuff, and I'll try to find a good picture, and I'll Google amends quotes and hope a good picture comes. It's always apology stuff. It's not the same thing as an apology. Apologies are very hollow. I've had eager sponsees, get their first weekend pass from the rehab, and they'll go home and, I made amends to all my family. I go, what did you say? I told them I was sorry. I said, that's great. I have to break it to them. That wasn't yet an amends. But it's not just newcomers that talk that way. Unfortunately, it's in the rooms. That's what we have book studies like this to tell people, oh, I want to motivate you so you could step up in a meeting, not sit there and go, you're wrong to someone, but step up in a meeting and give your, experience with it. I learned to talk big book from going to big book studies. But you hear people all the time with years of sobriety describe amends as an apology. An apology and amends are totally different. Oil and water. An apology is admission of guilt, sympathy, regret. Amends means to make right or wrong. And I believe sorry is just an easier, softer way we've used for years, it puts a Band-Aid on it. You know, I believe apologies are just words with no heart, and amends is words with a heart and action as well. You know, apologies have no heart behind it a lot. Sometimes, I mean, let me rephrase that. When we're in the spiritual realm, sometimes a simple apology might be good enough because it's I didn't maybe it's just a misunderstanding between me and someone else. I'm talking about the old stuff, but the way we done it, the word apology, it goes back to the Greeks. The Greek has roots in the Greek, and it's means a story. It entered the English language in the Middle Ages, and its an example would be, let's say you broke your friend's you know sword, let's just say, um, and you made up an elaborate story to get you out of trouble. That's what the word. Oh, so he told an apology is what they, and eventually it shifted the word and morphed into the current meaning. Pretty interesting because many times there is a long story with every apology we say. I mean, compare how long it takes to say sorry to someone, and that we gotta say these long-winded apologies, and how short amends is. But is there a word that especially alcoholics have said more than the word sorry? It's a word we love because it's easier. How many of us, how many times do we use it to our advantage? Again, we would sing it forever. Maybe the word that we've uttered out of our mouth the most. It doesn't fix anything, doesn't change the situation, doesn't mend any fences. We didn't care about what we did. We just say sorry so we can get on good terms with the person to get back what we wanted, get back with good graces people, get back in the crack house, whatever you had to do, you know, or get back with the girlfriends when she wanted to kick you out all those years. I'm sorry, I swear I'll get better. We want to get back in. It's just another tool we use to manipulate other people. Temporary fix for a lifelong problem. So it masks a much deeper problem. It did anything to fix the situation. And let's just say I owe Ali $3,000. Does he want to hear a long-winded apology rant about the money I owe him? No, he wants his money. You know, I make it right with him by paying him back. Sorry. I had to do a refinance my house, and now I get 500 calls a minute. Hold on 1 second. My air conditioning turned off too. There it goes. Anyways, technology. So he doesn't want to hear that. I'm gonna make it right with him by giving him his $3,000, at least $50, and make installments until it's made right, until it's made amends. Step 9, my grandfather used to say, is where long apologetic speeches end. So the aim is not to get good terms with the other person. It might happen. It is not for them, it's for us. Not for them at all. It's not, I told you a few weeks ago, it's not about forgiveness and all that stuff. We already have a forgiving spirit because we did 6. A vital part of our growth, because it cleans, like I said earlier, it cleans up our side of the street, while at the same time, you know, straightens our relationship with God. Because remember step 5 says we're getting a new attitude with God. Getting it. Didn't say we got it yet. We're getting it. It's 5-step promises. We may have certain spiritual beliefs, but now we have a spiritual experience. It says later on that we thank God by our house, we know him better. So now we're getting to know God. I'm going to make amends. I'm going to know him more and more because I'm getting more rid of stuff. Stuffs are not about gaining stuff. It's just 100 times. They're about losing stuff. Let's go back to the book. It says we want to sit down with the family and frankly analyze the past as we see it. Being careful not to criticize them. So you're not going, even though, you guys did me bad. You don't say that. Their defects may be glaring. They might be saying stuff to you. Take it. Take it. Take it. When I made amends to my cousin, he said some things that probably would have got him knocked to the ground, but I took it. And then I asked him if I can make it right, after he let him talk for a minute. Says back to the book, says, but the chances are our own actions are partly responsible, partly, yeah, right. So we clean house with the family, asking, and this is a prayer, each morning in meditation, that our Creator, that God show us the way of patience, tolerance, kindness, and love. So that's something you can add to your morning meditation right there. Perfect. God, give me or show me the way of patience, tolerance, and kindness and love. What helped me with is I define patience, I define tolerance. It's there's a book that's been around for quite a while. It's very helpful with the big book. It's called a dictionary, believe it or not. It's actually a 1930s dictionary, which I have, but a regular dictionary too. And plus we have something, cell phones now and the internet where we can look up these words. Very vital because we think what these words mean, and we're usually sometimes we're wrong. And I mean, we were impatient, we were unkind, we're full of hate. And some people we were patience, tolerance, and love, but why not the other people? What if we had that towards everybody? I always tell newcomers, I go, you got that one person that you'll go to the end of the world for, take a bullet for. Why can't you do that for everybody else? They look at me like I'm crazy. Here's a line I love in the book. The spiritual life is not a theory. And there's that word theory again. And I hammer it again. Theory is like a belief. It's a thought. But with a theory, anything I know in life is from experiencing it. If I never tasted a piece of steak before, I have a theory that it might, what it might taste like, but I eat it, I experience it, I know. So I'm going to commend, that's gross. I'm not going to eat that because that's based on theory. Spiritual life is not a theory. So spiritual life is not an idea, it's not a belief. Spiritual life is not a theory, we have to live it. Unless one's family expresses a desire to live upon spiritual principles, we think we ought not to urge them. You know, let's change this a little bit here. Unless one's family expresses a desire to stop drinking, we think we ought not to urge them. That's very important too. Because we get sober, I'm going to tell everybody they need to stop drinking, and they're like, "Get away from me, dude." The same thing with this. We're making amends. Our actions speak louder than our words. He says, this also says, we should not talk insanely to them about spiritual matters. They will change in time. Our behavior will convince them more than our words. So rather than, attraction rather than promotion. Speak the program and occasionally use words. Like speak the gospel and, occasionally use words you hear a lot, but I always say speak the program and occasionally use words. Now, you'll blow people's minds when you go make amends because physically you're not the same person. And you say occasional words like, how can I make it right? And they're blown away. Speak the program and occasionally use words. Sure, we want our family to be spiritual, but we don't want to force it on them. Don't talk to them about spiritual stuff if they don't want to hear it. Let them ask you. I went to a friend's house and brought him food all the time, and he was still doing dope. And one day he goes, "How did you beat this, man?" And I said, "Well," and I started talking about stuff, and he fell asleep. And he woke up, and there was a big book next to him. And it took about 3 or 4 months, but that was the first seed was planted. But I wait for him to ask me. That's why I used to go to my friend's house when I'd be in the neighborhoods that they all did drugs and still. I wasn't afraid to go up there. I'd already made amends to them by knocking on the door, and they would hide their bottles and act like, "Hey," like I'm the police or something. I go, "How are you guys doing?" Check in on them. But I wanted them to see me. That was the thing. But look what it says next. Here's why these people don't want to hear about our stuff. We must remember that 10 or 20 years of drunkenness will make a skeptic out of anyone. I'll give you an perfect example with my father. Took him to rehab when I was 20. He told me he was taking him on vacation. He dropped me off at a rehab. And it was a place called the Camp in the Santa Cruz Mountains. I did that, and then I did okay. I wasn't ready, but then I did pretty good at this one rehab. He knew someone that helped run it, and he always had faith in me until I started relapsing over and over again. And by the mid '90s, and him bailing me out of jail and stealing his car and stuff, and all sorts of nice stuff I did. Um, Not nice stuff at all. He just didn't have any desire to. He just would tell people, I don't think he's going to make it. You know, he just didn't have. He was super skeptical, and that's okay. I look back and it was the best thing that ever happened with us because and this is a great story. So he's sitting there, um, once he was retired, and I think retired in 2003. This is like 2007, right? Or no, 2004, right before I got married. And he's sitting there at the house, and he was still never came to her. He never heard me speak, never watched me get a chip. My mom came to all that stuff. Matter of fact, I'm going Saturday night to get my 24-year chip, and my 86-year-old mom will be there, and my 90-year-old dad will be there. Very cool. And um, he was sitting there one morning having his cup of coffee, and he's looking at the paper, and he goes, "Hey," to my mom. He goes, "Hey, Shirley, you know that Steve, Joe Strucky told me, a guy up the street, said Steve went over to Woodside, which is a school next to their house, and paid for a window he broke 35 years ago." And my mom's just like, "Well, yeah, that's what he's been trying to do." And he goes, "Well, whatever he's doing, needs to keep doing it." And after that, I heard that, it was like, wow, blew my mind. And I didn't have to go to him. It was something he heard from someone else. So let's talk about meetings for a second. Meetings, what do we do? We do the serenity prayer. God grant me the serenity to accept things I cannot change, the courage to change that I can, and the most important part, the wisdom to know the difference. Many think this prayer is only about not changing the fact we're alcoholic, right? That's the first part of it. But I want to talk about the part we overlooked, the second part, the courage to change the things we can. To me, it screams amends. It just screams it, because amends takes courage, and we don't think we can do it. It also tells us, you know, there are things, it's saying there's things we can change. And that's the beauty of the program. There are things we can change. It's very important when you hear that prayer, And plus, I mean, accept the things I cannot change, like someone's behavior too, but the courage to change the things I can. And amends is one of the easiest things I can do. But also at meetings, I mentioned this before, we hear how it works read, right? And they say whenever possible, where it says wherever possible in the book, or up on the wall, and you're looking at it going, what's this guy reading? To do that next few meetings to see who says whenever possible. You'll laugh. It's a little difference. I said this before, wherever is a place and a time, whenever is just a place or time, I mean. So it's like, and then what else do we hear at meetings? The promises, right? And people refer to these as the AA promises. Well, I don't mean to break the news, but there is no AA promises. There's only certain promises that contain to certain steps. I remember an old timer said to me one time, it took me 16 years to realize that the promises were towards steps. you know, but eventually did the steps. But there are promises, the reality, you know, they are results, right? They are results and a proof of healing. But I often wonder, when a person reads the promises, do they actually understand what they're actually reading? And I even heard a guy one time say, it was a woman actually, she said, I don't know how true these things are. I guess they're pies in the sky. But I think that some believe it has to do with time, and I think, or maybe being sober and making meetings every day. I was welcome to A, and then, someone gave me this blue book, and there's a program in that book. I applied the program, and one day I'm sitting in a meeting, and I've heard the promises read for the thousandth time probably in my life, and all of a sudden, wow, that's check, check, check for each one. These promises are about personal change sufficient to bring about recovery, psychic change. The 9-step promises describe, it's like the final blocks to the spiritual awakening. The final blocks where I remove it and the light hits me in the face, so to speak. The interest in the spiritual life. We're no longer a prisoner of self. We don't have to hide. We can hold our head up high, like I talked about earlier. But it's kind of telling you you've arrived. It's the final piece of the vigorous action that we've taken for the first time. I mean, we've done all these steps for the first time until we get to step 10, where we're going to do it, repetitively. But it's the end of the malady. The third step promises on 63 say whatever they say, we are reborn. That is what they're describing here, being reborn. And step 5 promises, like I said a minute ago, we may have had certain spiritual beliefs, but now we begin to have a spiritual experience. That's what they're describing here. And one thing I always like to bring up, there's no softer, easier way to receive these promises. They're not going to be dropped on you. You're not going to get it from going to 90 and 90, but they are not false advertising. They are rewards to freedom. So let's look at the promises of step 9, or should I call it results of step 9, or the healing of step 9. It says, now they don't start with a promise, they start with a condition. If we are painstaking, condition is like a prerequisite. If I'm painstaking means thorough, right? No stone unturned. We've heard this condition before. Rarely sin a person fail has thoroughly followed our path, and we beg you to be fearless and thorough from the very start. Went back to our lives on account of thoroughness and honesty. So they're saying if we've been thorough, well, they hammered us at home. Hopefully we have been about this phase. So what phase? The phase of God consciousness, union with God, the awakening to the vital sixth sense, as resolved 427. So if we've been honest with 427, here's what happens. We were amazed before we're halfway through. Halfway through what? Halfway through the amends, right? We'll be amazed. So we've been thorough on 427. We'll be amazed when we're halfway through the amends. So here's the promises of being halfway through the amends. Not if you have 30 amends, it's not after making 3 or 5 or 6. It's halfway through. We're going to know a new freedom and a new happiness. I've mentioned the word new 100 times in here before. New means I never experienced it before, never smelled it, never touched it. So that, the feeling like you get when you go in a new car you never experienced before, or something brand new. We think when you're a kid, every day is a new discovery. It's like you go to places and it's like everything's brand new to them, and they're amazed. That's why it's an awakening. So new freedom. So I have a new freedom, and I had it before. New happiness. Why is it new happiness? Because where's happiness is within me. I've always looked for it out here. We will not regret the past, nor should adorn it. So we gain the ability to not regret the past, but also not shutting the door on it, meaning step 9 removes guilt, where I know I'm to blame, or depression, happens. Why do we want to keep the door open, though? That's what some people were, well, I want to keep the door open to this. I don't want to think about this anymore. When we sponsor, we want no shame when we're sharing our experience with another alcoholic. That's why the door is open. My past is the present for others. That's where you create trust. That's the joy of one alcoholic working another alcoholic. Now, I love this one. We will comprehend the word serenity and know peace. Big, very big words, you know. Comprehend means to understand, right? So I understand serenity. How do you know something? Like I said, from experience. We finally experience serenity and peace. And we prayed for that for how long? Who doesn't want peace of mind? And we realized we never had it once we've had it. We've never been here before. So when consciousness is blocked, your perception of life is hazy and flawed, causing your thinking to be distorted and irrational and insane. And when you become one with consciousness, you perceive things rationally, truthfully, two eyes, clear eyes, new pair of glasses. If I truly have that oneness, it can be many things. I mean, sorry, if I cannot have that oneness, I meant to say, if I cannot have that oneness, it might be many things why I don't have it. Maybe it's a resentment I won't let go of. Maybe I'm not honest about something I'm holding on to. Maybe it's a secret no one knows about, or that fear you won't face. And amends that you refuse to make. Meaning if I'm not, you know, if I'm not stuck, I'm always experiencing oneness with God and peace and serenity. And like I said, it might be resentment you won't want to let go of. It might be you might not be honest with something. It might be a fear you won't face or amends you won't make. Maybe it's just a discussion you need to have with somebody. Let's see what else it says. No matter how far down the scale we have gone, we see how our experience can benefit others. I think it's safe to say some of us has done some bad things. So it's safe to say some of us have hurt people. And no matter what it is, big and small, thanks to this newfound clarity from overcoming this malady, we can see how our past can be the benefit for another person. I love that. We see how our experience can benefit others. No matter how deep we've gone, now we have something to offer people. That feeling of uselessness and self-pity will disappear. I want to point something out to you here. How do you overcome low self-esteem? By helping other people. It's interesting how he says, no matter how far our skill we've gone, we see our benefit others. And he falls right in that feeling of uselessness and self-pity will disappear. That feeling of low self-esteem, self-pity will disappear. I mean, we tried numerous ways to get past low self-esteem, depression, and self-pity. Therapy and maybe church and the right meds, the right alcohol, the right volume of alcohol, the right amount of drugs. And the reason now we feel useful is because we're making amends to please the fear. And I have a message. I can bring it to someone else. The greatest pill you ever take in your life to get past uselessness, self-pity, and depression is helping another person. And when that self-pity disappears, we no longer resent ourselves. We're no longer a victim. There's no recovery in being a victim, ever, ever. We'll lose interest in selfish things and gain interest in our fellows. So selfishness is tending mostly to my own needs with little or no thought of others. That's a kind definition of it. But it flips here. Selfless, which is tending mostly to the thoughts and needs of others, with little interest in my own thoughts and needs. I still tend to myself, but I'm always, every morning, who can I help today? We used to be, who can I hustle today? How am I going to get my money? How am I going to get this? And look at this next one. Self-seeking will slip away. Self-seeking is selfish in action. Meaning if I resent Rob because he says some things about me behind my back, and that's selfishness. But if I go punch him in the mouth, now it's self-seeking. So self-seeking, harming others will slip away. How does that happen? Because now we're aware. Since we're now unselfish, we're no longer, living in our selfish thoughts every day. That's why we have a morning meditation. and morning questions to answer in the morning. That's why we do continuous inventory. So I can get rid of all the diarrhea in my brain and be clear to who can I serve today? Harming others slips away. We go from being a self-seeker, even when trying to be kind, to just being kind. Think about that. Our whole attitude and outlook upon life will change. Outlook, how I vision things out here, my outlook. I'm seeing you guys, that's my outlook. There's a word that's in the sentence that's all of the book is attitude. It's if it says our outlook changes, our whole life changes, and we're looking for answers out here. We're looking for them within. That's my new attitude. My new attitude is I go within for solutions. But I looked out here for solutions for maybe it was money, maybe it was friends, maybe it was sex, whatever it was, drugs, alcohol. With the steps, nothing out here changed. My attitude and outlook changed because I brought it from within and brought it to you guys. And the amazing thing is that means I can come out and play with you guys. I can hang out with you guys and not want to be angry. Again, new pair of glasses. When you change the way you look at things, the things you look at change. When you change the way you look at things you look at change. I like to say when God changes the way we look at things, the things we look at change. Fear of people and economic insecurity will leave us. What's one of my biggest instincts is pocketbook. Emotional, material security. Material security. By making amends with people and making financial amends, we're not fearing those things anymore. They're in our past. It's in the rearview mirror. In the front, the windshield is a lot bigger than the rearview mirror. Awareness of material security is a big part of continuous growth. Always be on top of it. You don't want to get in fear. Look at this. I love this part. We'll intuitively know. Remember, this is an inward journey. It's not an outward journey, inward journey. We will intuitively know how to handle situations we used to baffle us. So intuitively is the ability to use our spiritual senses to understand and know something without direct evidence, right? An inner resource of infinite possibilities. So it's to use our spiritual senses to understand intuitively, intuition, an inner resource. So we understand something immediately in seconds without conscious reason. What does that mean is when I'm conscious of something, I see it and I might have to make a decision if I should do it or not, where intuition just takes me there. I just know it's good. And intuition, it's this inner communication system, inner guidance center, that is on call at any moment, basically, meaning we're no longer relying on self-knowledge and instincts. But it's precisely as it sounds, intuition. It's like an inner tutor inside of you. It's always going to talk to you and tell you, hey, it's a learning mechanism. It always gives you directions if you clear it out and don't hold on the crap. It takes you to where every day there's dimensions you never dreamed of. But for it to continue to blossom and grow, you got to nurture it. Let go of any obstacles in yourself. 4 through 7, open up at 9, and keep doing it 10, 11 every day. And of course, I'm already sponsoring. And I'll be honest with you, the first time I heard it, just like that one person said, these promises are pie in the sky. I thought this one was. I thought I could have all these promises except intuitively know I had situations these baffle us. That sounds stupid. I thought, why would I want that? And that's way too out there. It's not true. No one can have that. That's the way I believe. Because I was baffled by ordinary situations and other people. And I was always baffled by why was I baffled by other people? Because they seemed to be born, like they just seemed gifted to handle situations I couldn't. talking in front of people, to having jobs and all this stuff. I totally gave up having the ability to do that. I had no idea that God could and would do it for me. It's a huge change. What happened, the way I looked at life changed. I know that to immense. Here's what I mean. It's going to tell us exactly what I'm trying to say here. With suddenly realizing God is doing for us, we can never do for ourselves. Wow. We're realizing that God is doing for us, we can't do for ourselves. This is the step 3 means the care of God. God is the caretaker. Remember, the caretaker is brought in when someone's incompetent and needs help. Like when my grandmother was sick. Because the caretaker must be competent, trustworthy, available, and loving. You know, to do for you, we can't do for yourself. Halfway through amends, that's happening. God's doing for us, we can't do for ourselves. So let's do something fun here. Let's go back to page 52, and we're going to look at the bedevilments. And I'm going to read each bedevilment. We've gone through the bedevilments twice. First time was for instincts. First time was when we were looking, was for instincts. Second time we're looking at any life role and self-work had to be a success. So what does failure look like? That's the bedevilments. Now we're going to look at them, how far we've come from these bedevilments. So page 52, bedevilment number 1. We're having trouble with personal relations. Well, the step 9 promise has just told us we will lose interest in selfish things and gain interest in our fellows. Big change. The next bedevilment, we couldn't control our emotional natures. Step 9 promises has said we will comprehend the word serenity and know peace. We go from not being able to control our emotions to comprehend the word serenity and know peace. Wow. We were prey to misery and depression. We just read in the step 9 promises, our whole attitude and outlook upon life will change. Look at the next bedevilment. We couldn't make a living. This is not living life. World in the box. Look what it says for step 9 promises. Fear of people and economic insecurity will leave us. Wow. Fear of people will leave us. Fear of economic, not having enough money will leave us. Not having enough stuff or focused on that crap. Bedevilments. We had a feeling of uselessness. Step 9 promise says that feeling of uselessness and self-pity will disappear. It doesn't say that feeling of self-pity and that feeling of uselessness and self-pity will continue to fade. It says disappears. So we go from feeling useless a lot, all right, every day, to that uselessness disappears. Bedevilment, next one. We are full of fear. Step 9 promises. Until we know how to handle situations, what used to baffle us. Until we know how to handle situations, what used to put us in from being stuck in fear. Wow. Next bedevilment, we're unhappy. Step 9, we're going to know new freedom and new happiness. Because I never knew it before. Because happiness was always based on what the people had. I got to have this, I got to have that. I got to have this much money, I got to have that. And we had it with us all along. That's why it's new. Bedevilments, we couldn't seem to be a real help to the people. Step 9 says, no matter how far down the scale we have gone, we'll see our experience can benefit others. Wow. You see the tides are turning a little bit. Let's go back to the end of the 9th step promises. Where it says, are these extravagant promises? Are these extravagant? So this is what parrot talking to people go, I think not, and they don't even know what they're thinking. But extravagant means beyond normal. I always thought they were beyond normal, over the top, and they're not. He says, we think not. They're building, why? Because they're being fulfilled among us. Look around the rooms. If you think that, these are extravagant promises, look around the rooms. Look in this room right now. Sometimes they're happening quickly for a spiritual experience. Sometimes they happen slowly over a spiritual awakening. They're always materialized. They always become reality with this one condition: if we work for them. I love it just as a simple thing: if we work for them. They will materialize. They will be reality. They'll be you. They will be you if you work for them. And work is means action. It bothers me when people go work, 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 work. You know, because you know, if you ask half of them, they wouldn't know what that means. They say it's going to meetings. They have no clue. But there's all you can tell when someone reads these promises. But so what the promises? What are they? What are they telling us? Telling us you are awake. You're in a new dimension of existence. You've always had with you. You could always see, but you're blinded. But this is your reality now. This the serenity and happiness that we only receive through the steps. And so one day we find ourselves smiling, walking around from making amends and to a person we swore we'd never talk to again. I remember I was at Starbucks one time, and there's that guy I that was way at the bottom of my unwilling list, and I knew I had to go make amends. It was the one. He wasn't one of the float overs. Well, I guess he kind of did because he showed up, but a lot of people, I just would go, okay, I'll start making amends with these people now. This was the guy. I was like, and there he showed up, made amends, and boom. But I smiled because I was free of anger. And I could go anywhere I wanted to go. I realized what it was. Fear no longer is distracting my decisions. You know, and the hatred I held tight with was for everybody was now love. But we can smile because the person you carried, you know, message to us now is, when we take the message to someone, we can smile because they're making amends. And and I remember like remember my sponsor walked up to a sponsee one time outside of a meeting, and he goes, "Man, you made your amends today." And the guy's, "How do you know?" And I used to think he's just saying that. And then I made amends one day, and I kept waiting to tell him. He goes, "You made amends today." And I started sponsoring guys, and I knew what it meant. You could just see it, you know. And they're smiling. They say, they don't know what they're smiling about, but they are, because you reach a place where you're in joy and being in the now. My favorite place in my life was always somewhere else than where I was at. Always somewhere else. And now you reach a place where there is nowhere you'd rather be than where you're at right now. Nothing you would rather be doing than what you're doing right now. No, you would rather be with than what you're doing right now. Living in the moment. And that's the most beautiful thing in the world. I mean, never in a million years would I ever imagine that I would be to sit down with people what I've harmed and say, how can I make it right? I mean, it's not a pipe dream at all. You well, I guess what I'm saying is, today let amends define you. That restless, irritable, discontent mindset you fought for your whole life and try to be right and get the last word and no longer have, you never profited from it. No, you don't have to live there anymore. Now is a bigger place. And that's the reality of it. Stop thinking about making amends and just do them. You know, um, I'm going to close with this, and it's almost like a meditation in a sense, but it's really cool. So think about this for a second. Your journey began with admitting you're powerless, and then knowing you need power, making a decision to commit to action to find that power, becoming aware, understanding what blocks you from that power, letting go of those blocks, making amends, for your mistakes, and we're awake. There's always a few adjustments we make, but thanks to these tools, we can always discover why we're unhappy and fearful by continually understanding our blocks, letting go of our blocks, making amends for mistakes, sitting quietly, inquiring directions, helping others on this journey. We seek more within by continually understanding our blocks, by letting go of those blocks, making amends for our mistakes, sitting quietly, helping others. We can keep growing continuously. How? Understanding my blocks, letting go of my blocks, making amends for mistakes, sitting quietly, helping others. I can live altruistically. Now, to sound repetitive again, by continually understanding my blocks, letting go of my blocks, making amends for mistakes, sitting quietly, taking directions, and helping others. How about unconditional love? We can have that every day. If I continue understanding my blocks, letting go of my blocks, sitting quietly, or making amends, sitting quietly, helping others. We can live in the moment the same way, understanding our blocks, letting go of our blocks, making amends for mistakes, helping others the same. We see the new world through a new pair of glasses every day. How? Understanding my blocks, letting go of my blocks, making amends for mistakes, sitting quietly, helping others. We can live life without restrictions by continuously understanding our blocks, letting go of our blocks, making amends for mistakes, and quietly helping others. We can be free by continually understanding our blocks, letting go of our blocks, making amends for mistakes, and quietly helping others on the same journey. Get it? It's that simple. So next week, we're going to start talking about continually understanding our blocks, letting go of our blocks, making amends for our mistakes, sitting quietly, inquiring what directions to take, taking others the same journey. We're going to look at step 10 slowly. All right, I'm going to stop the recording.